We're all hot in the city. Hot in the city tonight.
Yes.
Even if we're not in cities.
See, I'm really envious of fake, flat Austin, Jeff, and Otto right now because they get to live in the snow globe.
Rosebud.
Citizen Kane not coming to Popcast Movie Club. Ladies and gentlemen!
Yet.
And if I have anything to say about it, I've already watched that one. Here's the thing. So we got lots to talk about, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about. I just want to say that again because I repeat things twice because I'm still super happy. So needless to say, I'm going to just enjoy this. We're going to have some fun tonight. So welcome to episode 3 of Popcast Movie Club here on the Popcast Network. Thanks everyone for joining us. I basically just stopped for that non-existent applause that I thought that was coming in my head, so we're good on that. Got my Celsius drink ski here, so yeah, it's excellent after running in a 93 degree heat. 100% recommend. And it also loses weight, so yay, I can lose more weight. So yes, we're gonna talk tonight about a lot of things, and the main thing we're gonna do before we get started, before we do anything, AJ has an answer to the New York question from Josie last night on the Q&A show.
You're gonna get me killed, Josie. If it's not the questions themselves that are gonna kill me, it's gonna be the people responding to them. Because I'm going to say this is gonna be so weird and out of context if anybody wasn't here yesterday, but
yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and put After Hours at the top. There's 5 things here that could be at the top. Okay. Now, as far as the second tier, it came down to 2. It was almost the Fisher King. It was really, really close to being the Fisher King. But because there's something that's just a little more... There was another movie that was an option that's a movie, whenever I see it, I just think this... I feel like this movie was you see those movies and you just feel like they were made for you. In another universe, you might have made that movie. And that movie for me is The Warriors. So I had to do it. So looking at everything else and the great lineup that there was, I have to say, much as I really, really, really love the Muppets, Take Manhattan wasn't one of the ones that stuck out to me as much. So I have to shun the Muppets, which I know is basically a sin against all that is humankind, but that's...
Just like Hacksaw Jim Duggan in the WCW World Television Championship, I will grab that wonderful DVD, CD, or Blu-ray copy of the Muppets Take Manhattan out of said trash can, and I would bring it to prominence. So we are good.
So yeah, I hate the fact that I have to shun the Muppets, but that's just a really fucking good lineup. So I had to. Because I'm not going to say no to Dog Afternoon. I'm not going to say no to Spike Lee. Not The Apartment. I can't do it. So
that's fair.
So now I need to briefly take over because I am in control of the poll. But the problem is I don't know what's going in the poll.
Oh boy.
So first up, if we're going in order of what happened in terms of 1 and 2, AJ, what is your choice to be up for consideration?
Okay, well, first off, it's storming again, so if you lose me, that's the problem.
Okay.
we held out last time. Let's hope it happens again. So it has been brought to my attention recently, even though there's a certain piece of news that's been ongoing for a couple of weeks that I've been watching religiously, there was actually something that was only recently brought to my attention that this movie is involved in. So I just need to say right now, what's going on in the news right now has nothing to do with why I chose this movie. It's completely coincidental.
Okay.
And we're actually going to be talking about another movie, apart from the 1972 Sleuth, that also might sound like it influenced this decision. That didn't either. That also is just completely coincidental. So it's like the stars are aligning anyway that I picked this movie, so it makes sense anyway. I'm saying The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because never under the impression that was going to be the direction you were going to go with this.
Yeah, because you were trying to figure out if you had seen it before, and I thought, I'm pretty sure you had. We talked about it really briefly when we did our Phil Seymour Hoffman video. It came up, obviously.
Right.
But you're saying you never saw it?
Not incomplete.
Oh, that'll be fun.
I'm excited. I got a feeling it's going to be your Double or Nothing movie weekend because once again, the talented Mr. Ripley is going up against something that I can't say is straight to video because that's not the correct answer.
Yeah, we were trying to figure that out yesterday. It'd be made for TV, wouldn't it?
It is made for TV, which is weird because anyone that knows me knows that I'm probably going to pick some pretty obscure stuff when it comes to Movie Club because there's a lot of things that we never got a chance to talk about on Versus. There's a lot of movie reviews we never got to do. And these are two things that I just mentioned right now that would never bring up this movie in a million years. Now, like a gems video, potentially. Like gems of things that I've enjoyed throughout the years that it would give me a chance to talk about them if I was still at the same place AJ is, but obviously I'm not. I would probably come up if that were still the case. But if that were still the case, then this would just be the two sides instead of me with a little and with you as always as Garth special guest star thing that I'm seeing that you guys don't see that I have to stare at every single time. So my pick is the fact that for those of you that don't know, in my life, there have been 3 people that have influenced me. And I have said this to one of them in my biggest bucket list item that I've ever had in my entire life. My 3 influences in life: Walt Disney, Penn Jillette, and David Letterman. And I got to tell Penn a few years ago, finally, in the best picture I will ever have in my entire life that doesn't involve my personal life in any way, shape, or form, I will state right now that being able to tell him that to his face was incredible. I'll never meet Walt Disney. That's not possible. David Letterman is a possibility, potentially, maybe somewhere down the line. Never know. I could be somewhere. I do travel, so it's possible. Not very often, but I could travel to a place that I might run into him. That being said, one of the things that I was really enamored with in the 90s was the fact that there was the race for who was going to take The Tonight Show when Johnny Carson finally stepped down. And when Johnny Carson was forced out of his chair, there was a book that was put out by Bill Carter. And HBO turned it into a movie. And the adaptation is what I'm going to pick. So my pick is 1996's HBO The Late Shift, the battle for Johnny Carson's Tonight Show chair between David Letterman and that worthless punk Jay Leno. Needless to say, this movie is phenomenal. It's absolutely hilarious, and I love this in every single way. John Michael Higgins is fantastic in it. It's the reason why John Michael Higgins I'm such a fan of his work to this day. Dan Roebuck is Jay Leno, and the big role here that I always throw out is going to be Kathy Bates as Helen Kushnick, because she was the reason that Johnny lost the Tonight Show. Basically, they forced Carson out. A great performance by Rich Little in that role, too. And this is awesome. It follows the book to a T. It's going after everything. We talk about Michael Ovitz. We talk about what happens with CBS. We talk about everything that happened with NBC and all the craziness there. And that's all in this film that we will be reviewing on Popcast Movie Club, whether on Double or Nothing weekend or in the beginning of June. You decide tonight, ladies and gentlemen. The talented Mr. Ripley versus The Late Shift tonight on Popcast Movie Club.
And it's worth noting that he plays it so well, still to this day. Anytime I see Daniel Roebuck in a movie, all I see is Leno.
Totally, 100%, 100%.
And I guess we could. This is something that's not a requirement or anything. I'm just saying today how we're talking about Sleuth and kind of by extension Branagh's remake.
Yeah.
When we talk about Mr. Ripley, probably by extension Purple Noons we're gonna probably come up. at least a few times. So if anybody wants to venture into that also, but that's not. The main focus will be Mr. Ripley, obviously.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, honestly, because like I have seen bits and pieces of the talented Mr. Ripley. I've seen little like the bit they did on SNL when Affleck hosted. Obviously, one of my favorite SNL bits of all times that was cut for time on any of the broadcasts. That Who Wants to Get Groped by 11,000 Air. Don't know why I cling to that. It's just absolutely hilarious. It's amazing, and I recommend it if you can find it. And one of those was a talented Mr. Ripley parody, and I don't know much about the movie, and I'm very excited to be able to check it out, honestly. So whether I win or lose, I'm very excited to be able to talk about Matt Damon on this channel again.
And Philip Seymour Hoffman, for that matter.
You see, the thing I'm happy about is we get to talk about Hoffman again in context this time, because when we did our tribute video, we did a remembrance video, when we talked about his entire filmography, still there wasn't things that were not said that we wanted to, because obviously we could have talked all day, and we talked for a long amount of time, but being able to talk about these movies one by one, and as we go into Hoffman's filmography, I feel like Popcast Movie Club may be a nice little window into that somewhere down the line too, because we got plenty of time. We really do. Because if everything rolls the way it's supposed to, and it feels like it's going to, and hopefully I'll be able to make an announcement when we get to do our Double or Nothing weekend Popcast Movie Club Q&A video, I will state right now that even with that, Movie Club's not going away during horror nights, because worst come to worst, I've got Monday off. So we may have to shift the days to Monday and Tuesday during horror nights, but it's not going anywhere. Neither is the Q&A, and it might be more entertaining, honestly, because I might be able to say cool things. We'll see.
And I just love that I know what your pick is going to be in October, and I'm really curious to revisit it, because I haven't revisited it since the day I saw it.
Yes.
But that's still 5 months away, which, with the way time is going, will be here as soon as we blink. So
please do. Please get there. 100%.
So Ashley should be back in a second. What we were talking about before was I had assumed that since I picked the player, I felt like I kind of led that conversation. And then when we did Moving Violations, you led the conversation. So since this is Ashley's pick, I was assuming he would be kind of leading the conversation. I've got a whole page of notes here, but I assume Ashley would be.
I don't have a page of notes, but I have notes. I think I learned my lesson from the player in Moving Violations to not like notate everything, because that's one of the problems I have. Like when I used to do like move for move, spot for spot, when I was doing like wrestling commentary reviews, basically for like our wrestling podcast. It's great, it's awesome and everything, and I can do it like really well. But at the end of the day, it's like it's tiresome. And there's no reason to do that. There's no reason to like talk about absolutely everything when you don't have to. I said last night during Q&A, without knowing, and I'm sure you kind of were thinking to yourself, or like, he's going to be really not surprised very soon, when I said that I felt like Sleuth is a two-man show. And I didn't know what was getting myself into when I said that comment. I was just hanging on what I thought was going to happen. That was pretty correct, which I'm good with that.
That's really good timing.
Well, let's go into Chatski real quick. So because of said chat, Ashley, I cannot read the first comment that is posted on here because my chat is being covered up by the poll. Yeah. So can you throw out that first comment? I know Josie has a lot of stuff to say. I just want to make sure I get everything covered.
Yeah, Josie said, what an intriguing mystery thriller. I can definitely see where Rian Johnson got inspiration for Knives Out, with Olivier's character being the murder mystery writer.
Yeah, after I hadn't rewatched this since Knives Out came out, I had forgotten how much Knives Out borrowed from this.
Why was this not a versus?
We did Knives Out with Clue earlier this year.
See, that's the thing. I think that's probably what I was thinking when you were talking about Sleuth. I kind of misinterpreted it. I thought we were talking about Clue.
No, they're pretty. I mean, there's definitely similar vibes in some cases, but they're pretty different too. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Josie says, while watching it, I actually thought about The Lighthouse with two men battling each other's egos. Brian says, I'll just say this, even though it's been over a day ago, this is a movie I just want to forget about.
Yeah. I
I'm
can
not
see
sure.
why it isn't. I can see why it isn't going to be for everyone's taste. But then at the same time, I saw the remake.
We'll get to that. And just looking at the movie poster makes my head spin.
Actually, I hate to sound. I'm afraid we're going to sound condescending later when the remake comes up, because what I kept thinking when I was revisiting the remake was, I feel like people that don't like Mankiewicz's version will like Brano's version, because it's kind of they would like Brano's version more if they don't like Mankiewicz's version.
There's a possibility, but I think it takes a different direction that I don't know what Howell Pinter was smoking, but we'll get to that.
I wrote that in my notes. I wrote down the word fetishistic. Is that where we're going with?
Oh wow.
Possibly.
Hold on. So I mean, I got notes here. I do. I don't have many.
I love the fact as soon as you said fetishistic, and Owen switched to his notes, it went to sort of like a red or a blue sort of neon hue, as if like, you know, turn on the S&M lights. God damn you, Harold Pinter.
I mean, I have a multicolored background on my desktop right now, so that's probably what you saw in the reflection. Like I said, I'm happy. Give me a break. Josie says it would be interesting to see this done on stage with Defoe as Olivier's character and Bobby P as Michael Caine's character.
Oh wow!
I like this. I like this greatly, Josie.
Yeah, because I don't even take that as a Lighthouse connection. I would just, they both could fit these characters really well.
Oh yeah. Let's see. John Addison was nominated for an Oscar for his score. However, he was not originally among the 5 nominees when the nominations were announced. He was added to the list after the score for The Godfather was deemed ineligible.
Yeah, the score nomination is funny to me, because is it just me, or is the best score in the movie whenever all the toys are playing at once? Like with that you don't even need another score.
I just like the fact that like some of the most prominent bits of the score are just Cole Porter songs. It's like, well, that in score.
It's just a really creepy vibe throughout the entire movie, and it plays really well with your emotions too. But we'll get to that in a minute. I want to get to chat before we go into the show. So Josie says the reason this film was so difficult to find on streaming, it fell in the hands of a pharmaceutical company called Bristol Myers Squibb, dissolving their entertainment division shortly after creating it, leaving the movie's distribution rights in limbo. It has since never been reacquired or restored as of early 2022. The Poe Award on Andrew Weich's mantle was the one given to Tony Schaefer for Sleuth. That makes sense.
Wow.
It's just so fascinating that like it's the property of a pharmaceutical company that may still own it, but who knows? Which is why the DVD and I don't know if it came out on Blu-ray in America. I only got like a limited like DVD release over here via Paramount of all people, like a decade ago. And other than that, it's like, yeah, you have. I was gonna say you have to pay a lot, but doing my research, at least in the UK, it's about the same price as like a standard DVD for like a new release is. So it's not dramatically over the top. But eventually it might be if it's pharmaceutical. Somebody needs to own it sometimes, please.
Yeah, because prior to preparing for this, the only other times I had seen this movie were on Turner Classic Movies. Like, I don't own it or anything.
That makes sense.
No, the first time I saw it was on Turner Classic Movies at like 2 a.m. And that's a great way to watch this movie, by the way.
I'll give
Especially for the first time.
I'll give you another one. The way to watch this movie that is the one I dealt with. I dealt with a nice thunder and lightning storm in the background as I was watching the last hour of it last night.
As things are getting more and more out of control.
100%. So Joseph Mankiewicz also won an Edgar for Five Fingers in 1952. Brian chimes in and says, ironically, Sleuth lost the dramatic score for the re-release of Limelight. It's the last theatrical movie of Mankiewicz, says Josie. The two London street names signed in The Cellar of Andrew are references to crime mysteries. Baker Street, of course, the fictional residence of Sherlock Holmes, and Berner Street was the real-life scene of the Jack the Ripper murder.
This is a really good time to bring up how we just talked about the score nomination. This movie got 4 nominations. How the hell was one of them not production design?
That's a good point.
That really bothers me.
Ken fucking Adam. The legend it is. I had to find some way to do something James Bond related for the first one, didn't I? Part of me feels like it's not just like the set of the house, and maybe even the maze garden at the start, but it's the actual details of like the fake stages that you see, like the what's the word that I'm looking for? The dioramas. Just within that first like title sequence.
The automatas. It reminded the video. Honestly, I'll look at it from this perspective. AJ, I don't know if you'll get this or not, or you may look at me like I have 3 heads, which is possible. I got vibes of like the beginning credits of the Batman movie, kind of like how it was like dark and it kind of gave you an idea of what was about to happen before it did.
I mean, with the stage and curtains, I thought you were going to say Moulin Rouge, but
I could see that too. We press on. Joanne Woodward's likeness was used for the painting of Marguerite. Nominated for director, losing to Bob Fosse for Cabaret. Olivier and Kane for both lead actor, losing to Marlon Brando for The Godfather. Sleuth was the only movie that year to be Oscar nominated for director but not picture. And Alan Bates was offered Milo but turned it down after walking out of the play believing a role to be unbecoming of an actor of his stature. And
yeah, I don't. The story I'd always heard was it was because he thought that the character was dead.
Interesting.
And he thought the part was like too insignificant or something. I mean, I'm guessing that ties into that, but that's what I heard the full reason was. But that could just be legend. I don't know.
Andrew, take a shot. So, Sleuth playwright Anthony Schaefer also wrote The Wicker Man as well as the screenplay for Frenzy. So, screenwriter and author of the source play take a shot. Screenwriter and author of the source play Anthony Schaefer based the Andrew White character partially on Stephen Sondheim. A lover of whodunits and avid collector of games, Sondheim's screenplay for The Last of Sheila in 1973 reflected both of these fascinations.
That makes perfect sense.
Oh my dad. Okay, we're doing either or, I guess it looks like. Okay, rapid fire, everyone. This or that. Olivier or Michael Caine movies?
Oh.
Okay. What we got?
In general, I think Caine has more shit, but I think Caine also has more movies in general. So that's. Oh man.
I'm going with Caine.
No, Josephine's listing him underneath.
Oh, do we have options?
Yeah. So we got The Man Who Would Be King.
No. No, I just want to make sure I got this right. Yeah, so this or that game, basically, I read that wrong. My apologies. It's Olivier's movie versus Michael Caine's movies, and we have a list. There we go. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Ashley.
The Man Who Would Be King or Marathon Man?
Marathon Man.
Is it safe?
Yeah.
3 words that scare everybody from going to a dentist. Noises Off or the 49th Parallel? Probably probably say Noises Off.
I don't think I've seen Noises Off. Because when you said that, I thought of Little Voice, and that's where my mind was going. But that's a different movie. He's amazing in Little Voice. But I don't think I've seen Noises Off.
A Bridge Too Far or Clash of the Titans?
I guess A Bridge Too Far. I'm not really big on either one.
I'll probably go with Clash of the Titans just because of the Harryhausen, stop motion stuff. Rebecca or Hannah and Her Sisters?
Rebecca.
Yeah, I'd give the edge to Rebecca on that one as well. And then after that, Annoying Spam.
It's funny that we're doing this. Sleuth is another movie where Olivia has an off-screen wife that's the cause of the whole thing.
I guess if we're doing that respect and we're doing sort of films similar from their backgrounds, would the best compliment for Little Voice be Prince and the Showgirl? In terms of Olivier's?
No, that's a whole other rabbit hole. I'm not.
Yeah, because it's you couldn't really do it with The Entertainer because obviously that's Olivier actually being the sort of the lead in it, rather than obviously Ray Say's character being more of the mentor manager sort of thing, which is why I thought the other one would be closer. We're not talking about the 2020 remake of Rebecca, says Bry.
Yes,
No.
I agree.
We're talking about the black and white one. That's the difference. What did you do, Ben Whishaw? Damn it.
You mean really? Don't you dare blame this on Ben Whishaw.
No, it's the only thing that I think he's done that's not good.
I mean, are we talking about Wheatley?
Oh, Wheatley. Damn it.
I wasn't big on High Rise, so.
I have personal bias in Sightseers because I got a giant fucking pencil for it.
Surprised it's not a sewing needle.
Probably, yeah, that'd be appropriate as well. So yeah, Sleuth. I'm trying to think how I first. I don't know if it was a TV thing when it was on just randomly on one of the channels. I don't think it would have been on BBC, but my mum recommended it as being sort of this really good sort of drama thriller, I think is what she said. Which when it gets to the latter point, you do feel it gets there. And I think it also, in terms of production design, I think some of the cinematography is very good. Although that mainly probably would be production design related, because all the various glances that you do to the automata, and they always seem to be looking in the right direction every time. Just to be extra blooming eyes following you around the room when it's that didn't look like that in that wasn't looking in that direction 5 minutes ago. What happened? This is getting creepy.
Getting creepy? Really? Getting? No. From the second the movie started until the second it ended, extreme creep factor. It was very unsettling. It did its job well.
I just thought it would be the kind of stuff that an eccentric crime writer would have around his place. So that's why I was sort of yeah, this makes sense. It wasn't like, Conjuring, and it's like, why is all this spooky shit here?
This is the starting how people like Jack Torrance go insane. Is that
Exactly.
amazing?
What probably helps with that as well, of course, is like the very first time when they see each other from the maze deal, when he opens the thing, and the laugh. That's the same laugh that's then incorporated into Jolly Jack Tarver, the marionette. And there's so many bits where you hear like a glimpse of Lawrence's laugh, and it's like they just reuse that clip, right?
Yeah, because I love this, but I love how you can tell it's intentional too, especially when we get that shot where the puppet is laughing, but the shot is on Olivier looking very serious, and it's like that whole thing of you. It's almost like the inner what's going on inside him is coming. We're seeing it simultaneously, but we're also seeing the laugh kind of represents the sadistic nature, and it's the serious side is like how dangerous that can be with the whole game scenario. Because we were talking about what all is in the house, and you'll notice how not only is his thing just games in general, mainly mind games, but there's just literal games everywhere. And how like that, like as soon as Milo is on the property, the game has begun until the very end. And so there's that whole thing where the entire time the mind games are going back and forth, and then it gets to a point when they're playing pool, and you kind of see that like White kind of has the upper hand because he cleans the table entirely.
Wow.
But
Continuity fuck up.
oh,
I
was
only
that?
know this because I followed the fuck out of Snooker when he just like pots whatever how many reds there are, because we obviously don't see all of it cut down, but then it's like yellow, right? Green, yes. Brown, yeah. Blue, yeah. Black. Why didn't you fucking pot the pink? That's next. Where'd the pink go? That's the ultimate.
And really the great thing about that scene is how, because the game is the whole movie, the mind games and all that, when it starts to get to that point of where it's like they're happening while this is happening, while they're playing actual games, so it's like games are happening within games.
But
and
where does the game truly start? Let's be honest. The game truly starts at about 40 seconds into the film, when you see the cast list of all these people that are not in this film. That's where the game truly starts.
Again, I feel like we should lead up to this, but now that Alec Cawthorn has been brought up,
Yes.
I have a couple of things. The first thing I want to do is ask Owen, when did you know?
I'm looking at my notes. Honestly, I felt literally, and like you know this because I told you that I was not really feeling the first like hour and 15 of the movie. I don't know, something about it. Like it took Milo taking the bump off the ladder in order to like shock me back into the movie. I was just like, I wasn't like Kevin Smith Wild Wild West or anything like that, but it's just like I was just kind of just not getting it at all.
I was really confused when you said that, because I've always found this movie to be instantaneous. I feel like it starts immediately. And they actually do something here that's great that the remake fucked up. The remake went out of its way to fuck up.
So your question to me is when did I know?
Yes.
You could tell last night when we did the Q&A show that I knew, because I called it a 2-man show.
Yeah.
And I didn't know then. I mean, well, I wasn't sure. But I will say right now, I'm looking at my notes right now, and it says, I'll read it verbatim. It says, game leads to Andrew killing Milo. He falls down the stairs, but we don't see more. Inspector arrives. Immediately, I believe it's Milo in makeup. I knew right away.
Yeah, because it's one of those things now to where I'm really trying hard to hold on to my memory when I first saw the movie, because when you know, it's like the very first shot of him is, it's like, how do people not know that's Kane? It's literally, and they even, at least they didn't do what Branagh did. Branagh started with a fucking close up, which was a terrible idea. But the thing about it was, and I'm wondering if this was your experience, I remember vividly, and this had to have been like nearly 20 years ago, but my memory is so vivid. It was always a back and forth thing. It was like, we'd see him from the front, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Michael Caine in makeup. But then he would turn, and I'd be like, oh, no, it's not. Never mind. And I kept going back and forth. There were times where it was like, that's definitely him. And it's like, oh, I'm not sure now. It's like weird. That kind of held on until the actual reveal.
Well, it's funny because I figured that was the case and that was the direction we were going, because I was like, okay, fine. I don't know anything about the movie. I didn't look into anything about the movie. I didn't look into the cast list. I didn't look at anything. I went into it completely blind, 100% blind. And I was like, when the inspector shows up, I was like, that's Michael Caine. Is it supposed to be Michael Caine? And I was like, yeah, it's got to be supposed to be Michael Caine. It makes sense. And then when he subdues him and he's got him like basically like cuffed behind and he's like ripping off the prosthetics and everything, I was like, hell yeah, I was right. Yeah, let's do this.
It's what that's the beauty of it, is if you figure it out halfway through or even before, the reveal is not a moment where you say, oh, I knew that, that's dumb. You say, yes, I knew it. It's like, that's the big difference in that reveal.
I literally wrote in my notes, which of course I'm not going to say on here, but the words I used verbatim were, F yeah, I knew it.
Fuck yeah.
Exactly.
I need to read something really quick.
Go right ahead.
I want to talk about the lengths they went in 1972.
Yeah.
I heard about this. This is insane. Kayfabe is not dead in 1972.
The example I have is Ebert's review.
Okay.
Where obviously Alec Cawthorn is not a real person.
Yes.
But the credit says introducing Alec Cawthorn as Inspector Doppler.
Mm.
Now, nowadays, all the reviews would try to be the first one to get the secret out. Or they would say, this character, and then like wink wink, like to let you know, oh, this character's not what they seem to be. This is how Ebert wrote about Inspector Doppler. He talks about what really makes the movie come alive, what makes it work better than the play really, are the lead performances by Sir Laurence Olivier, Michael Caine, and Alec Cawthorn. And he describes Olivier, then he describes Caine, and then he says, Inspector Doppler, the kindly old investigator who suspects that Andrew has murdered Milo, is played by Alec Cawthorn, a veteran stage actor making his movie debut. And that's all he said. And it's like, were they told to say that, or did Ebert take a liberty with that? Or
that makes me so happy.
And then, like, when you look at it, they said that there were all going to be all these cameos from, like, famous people as well.
Yeah.
And there's stuff that's in the trailer which doesn't feature in the film. Not to the same extent of, like, when you get sort of false flagged, like, with the early trailers for Metal Gear Solid 2, implying that Solid Snake is going to be who you're playing as when actually it's Raiden. Not to that extent, but it's sort of like minor stuff that could easily have featured in the film but didn't. To be fair, even the trailers from the 70s don't really mention anybody, and they don't try and they didn't try and show fake scenes with fake actors. They just had like production notes or whatever from people that followed it in the press that were like, oh, big names are coming into this film, but you'll have to find out who it is by watching them. Sort of the equivalent of like Hitchcock not allowing anybody into Psycho. Yeah. If they didn't get in like 20 minutes in, because like, nope, won't get it.
Was that just something the Anthony Hopkins movie did, or was it a real thing where he gathered up like all the copies of Psycho's book and got rid of them?
Knowing Hitchcock, that's possible.
No, another thing I kind of just wanted to mention when I was talking about how the reveal works, whether you know it or not, is like even if you do figure out that it's Caine in makeup, there's still suspense because you're wondering, okay, now that I know that's Milo, when and how will it be revealed that it's him? Is the next level of suspense. So it's going to work regardless of whether you figure out that it's him or not. Which is so risky. I'm really wondering how that particular thing plays out on stage. Because on stage it's probably a lot harder to tell it's the same actor because you're at a certain distance.
Sure.
And you're not working with somebody like with Jude Law in the remake, it's a little easier because by 2007 we very much knew who Jude Law was and what he looked like.
Sure.
And Kane had like Alfie had already happened, and Get Carter I think was like the year before. So it's like people knew who Kane was, but he wasn't like as famous as Jude Law was in 2007.
At the same time, though, I feel they did a better job with the actual makeup for the original.
Yes.
Because when it's like, that actually is Jude Law. You know, it's not like that might be Jude Law. That's clearly him. It's literally practically the same hair and the same face.
Yeah, because there's a couple of times in the remake where I feel like they pulled off there's some angles where it doesn't look like him, but like I said, the way he fucked up by getting a close up at the start. That was, I don't know why you would do that.
Fair.
I'm intrigued to go through your notes though, Owen, as like first time viewer of it all. Like,
yeah, and
chronological order.
Well, we'll get there. Don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I want to read chat real quick before we go any further because we've got some things that Brian and Josie were saying. So who would win in a fight? T's character from Knives Out or Olivier's character in Sleuth? That's for you, AJ. Forever and a day, Chris Plummer will always be T. You know that.
Are we talking about a battle of wits or a physical fight?
I mean, better question, who'd win in a fight, Michael Shannon or Olivier? Michael Shannon has no remorse for any human on planet. He can be the nicest guy in the world, but Michael Shannon as a character in any movie has no remorse for any character in the world. He literally is the Iceman, after all.
Yeah, because even in Knives Out, he's a fairly normal character, if a little aggressive, but he still has that scene with Ana de Armas in the hallway that's really sinister.
Everything he does is sinister, good sir. Josie says another film Sleuth sort of reminded me of was, in terms of an older man and a younger man sort of competing for the same woman, The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin.
Interesting. I don't believe there's a bear in this one, though. That's different.
I mean, there could have been an automata of a bear with.
No, there is a bear in this.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
There is definitely a bear in that random Shakespearean automata land of creepiness and dull parts. He has to say, in Sleuth adaptation with Bobby P. and Willem Dafoe, it would be set in or by a lighthouse, and which actress would be the model for the painting of Marguerite?
Probably Anya Taylor-Joy or some shit.
That makes sense. Which
well, no, if you're looking for if it's Dafoe and Patterson, you're obviously looking for an older woman. So maybe Streep. You're looking for somebody that would like fit. You think with sort of like being the trophy wife of Dafoe's character.
Julianne Moore.
Yeah.
We cast.
Are you linking them together because of Body of Evidence? I'm curious.
I can do this right now because I'm in pain, so we'll do that. Whose books would you rather read if they were real? Plumbers and Knives Out or Olivier's in Sleuth? Yes? Can I just say yes?
Plumbers seem a little like they'd be more like fun, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't be like they wouldn't be as sophisticated, I don't think.
Just when we get that dictation at the start of like the little fuerte, like as if he's like being extra pompous for his screenplay. Well, for his.
I feel like I feel like Wyke would be in tune with like Agatha Christie, and Thrombey is the stuff that you would like see at the dollar store.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Or Five Below in this day and age. Not even the dollar store, Five Below. I'll give them a little more credit than that. So, this is the first time I've seen this movie, and Ashley picked something that I was, like I said, I went into completely blind. Until the first like hour, and I just mentioned a minute ago, until like the ladder bump, I kind of just like was kind of tuned out a bit. I don't know why.
Because I have a question about that.
Go ahead. And I was awake, so there.
I was talking about there's a moment that the remake really, really fucked up.
Okay.
That this one does perfectly. I guess I'll do this with the remake. When Milo first gets there in the remake, they start talking, and then they just casually start by saying, "So Maggie wants a divorce. Like, are you going to give us the divorce so that we can be together and all that?" And they talk about the whole scenario. Then they sit down, and Kane says, "So you're fucking my wife." And what this one does that one should have done was the first reveal that that's what's going on is him saying, "So you're in love with my wife." There's no lead into it. He just starts with that. Like, if the remake had not talked about it at all, and the lead into it was just "So you're fucking my wife," that's the impact you need for that.
And what works with it as well is the little tiny da-da-da musical cue, and then Jack Tarver looking across like, uh-oh. Again, it's just like the position of like all the automata at that point where it's like just beautifully framed.
So was there any part of you going in completely blind, having no idea what this was there not a part of you that immediately was like, what's going on, when Olivier just randomly says, "So you're in love with my wife"?
See, as someone who kind of was in this boat many years ago, needless to say, shoot.
I wasn't going to say it. I was going to let you say it.
That's fine. Lots of things have changed. 'Tis the season to bring up the past. Needless to say, I will say right now that it felt really weird because, as of someone that has dealt with said interaction in the past, that's not the right direction you would necessarily would go. Like, for example, you're not necessarily buddy-buddy with the person that's very close to the person you pretend to care about. And it is clear Olivier does treat her as a trophy, 100%. He becomes the Duke full-fledged, almost word for word, midway through the actual movie.
Yeah, because that's the joy, is that their fight with each other is so narcissistic and ego-based that it's not even about her after a while.
Nope, not at all. It's a Brian Mills dick measuring contest, as we used to call it back in the day.
Which is where it goes all downhill with the remake. It goes way too dick measuring than actually be. You know, it's just.
That's crazy. That I haven't thought about that line in like a decade, and as soon as you said that, it took me, I was like, wait, what does that mean again? And I am suddenly heard Liam Neeson scream at Xander Berkeley, "I don't have time for dick measuring, Stuart."
Yeah.
I forgot that we immortalized a line in Taken that wasn't the speech.
Dude, what we have done for years, and for those of you that have followed the network, you kind of got an idea, and with these kind of shows and with the Q&A shows, you kind of get a little bit more, like every single week we do this, but we have memorialized these random lines from movies that you don't even think about, but for some reason they're like the greatest things in the world.
Yeah, we make a new vocabulary, essentially.
100%. Transformers comes to mind, a line that was said that is definitely not the real line, and AJ knows exactly what I'm talking about. That's why he laughed like that.
Oh, we're getting way sidetracked.
I ate the whole plate.
This is what I wear when...
Yes. Uh,
Welcome to Club
Love
Manor.
Love shows like this. Josie, see, it's funny because I've always like back in the day, Ashley, when we were doing this, when we were doing the wrestling shows, it's like listening to like the SNS radio network and everything. All I ever wanted to do was to do like podcasting and everything, but I never thought it would be something that would ever happen. But then it's like years later, sure, let's go ahead and just do a random podcast on like Q&A and like go for 2 hours and like just talk about just random stuff and like little tidbits of the past. I mean, I literally just brought up something I've never talked about on here a few minutes ago as just oh, by the way, this happened, and let's move on.
Yeah, we've sidetracked too much, so now we kind of have to, just really quick, I just want to say, there is a moment in Revenge of the Fallen, the second Transformers movie, where John Turturro is changing his pants for a reason I don't remember. And for another reason, he's wearing like a thong or something underneath.
Yes.
And he says something, and we thought it was, "This is what I wear when I fuck," which is clearly, which is clearly not what he's saying. To this day, I do not know what the actual line is. I've never bothered to look it up, and I have not seen the movie since. This was in the theater in 2009.
And it popped us so much, honestly.
I'm trying to work out now if that's
I'm gonna pull it Ashley right now.
I'm trying to work out now then if that's the same character that he played in Gloria Bell. Like.
Of course, there's no.
So anyway, where were we on Sleuth again?
God dang it. We're doing chat now. So real quick, Josie chimes in and says, while we're on the subject of the remake, is that Michael Caine versus Jude Law movies? So Alfie versus
Alfie.
Alfie.
I was gonna say I don't know why it took me a while to realize that Sleuth is just the Alfies duking it. And there's actually a moment where Jude Law says, "What's it all about?" in it.
Yeah,
it seems really out of place.
You know why that was put in? Because Jude Law's a producer.
It's so out of place because he clearly could have just said, like, you know, "What is this?" or "What are you doing?" "What's it all about?" sounds so weird in the context. Obviously Kane's Alfie, even though Laws is okay, I think.
I've seen Laws Alfie, so I'm partial to it because I haven't seen Michael Caine's, sadly.
That one's just the best one because it's arguably one of the first major films that did break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
And just even the title of the film when it comes up is breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. like,
Chat, you've been very successful in the past. Brian, I'm putting this on you. Find out what the Transformers line is, please, before the show's over. I have to know. I'm looking, and it's not helping whatsoever. Mona Lisa Smile versus Road to Perdition. Road to Perdition, Road to Perdition, Road to Perdition, Road to Perdition.
I mean, I don't want to shit talk Mona Lisa Smile, but I mean, Road to Perdition is Road to Perdition.
Cider House Rules? Yeah, it does. Or Cold Mountain?
I gotta say Cold Mountain.
Yeah. Dirty Rotten Scoundrels or Contagion? That's an easy one.
Some of these are weird.
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is one of the funniest comedies of all time, so I gotta say that.
It's so good.
But I think I think Contagion's very good though.
Contagion's 100%.
And honestly, its reputation has only increased with time. So.
Yeah. Contagion was a really good comedy. Then the pandemic happened. Then it's like, oh no, it's actually real.
and funny enough, Jude Law's performance was always the one that stuck out to me, and he's the yeah.
So we move on. Chat's over with for the time being. We'll get to more, I'm sure, very soon. Oh, take a shot. Mr. Destiny or The Holiday? Josie, one thing I will say about me, The Holiday is something that I've always loved and identify with, so I'm going to go with it.
Not only do I love The Holiday as well, but Mr. Destiny's the Jim Belushi movie, right?
That, I believe so, yes.
Okay, so even if The Holiday sucked, just based on fuck Jim Belushi, I would still say The Holiday.
That's also fair.
It's weird. I don't really like The Holiday. But the fact that Mr. Destiny is basically just a rip-off of It's a Wonderful Life.
That's fair.
Fuck that film. I will actually also go with The Holiday, even though I'm not a fan of it.
It's like when you're watching. It's like when the radio comes on. I'm dating myself right there. They got that get that phosphate down at the drugstore. Like basically, you have the radio comes on, or you like your Spotify playlist comes across, and all of a sudden you hear a song. You're like, I don't like the song, but you know what? I know the song. I know every word. You know why you know every word? Doesn't mean you like the song. It means you just kind of know it. So, and I think that's where Ashley's coming from. It's like I don't like this movie, but if I had to choose, because I said something the other day, I was working today, and they gave me an opportunity to switch locations, and it was either the location I don't like or the location I don't like. So I basically did the Airheads thing, and I just like, well, this is kind of like this is like a Hager Roth situation. It's like, or it's like Hitler Stalin. I don't want to pick either one because I lose either way. So needless to say, yeah, that kind of happened. So yeah, that's something that can happen as well. So just because you don't necessarily like a song doesn't necessarily mean that it's not something that you know every word to because it plays constantly. Same with movies. So just because you don't like something doesn't mean that you don't know the movie, whether you want to or not.
I just thinking sort of chronologically, like just for the first half bit.
Mm-hmm.
I love Harold Pinter said he never watched the film or anything when he wrote the screenplay.
Okay.
But I just feel he basically wrote it after seeing the scene of Michael Caine picking up the dress out of the basket and like teasing the sort of like kiss me you fool sort of thing. Because that is basically the theme of the remake. It just goes very heavily sort of like homoerotic, yeah. It's not actually about, you know, the relationship that they have and whatever. It's more like they have a fondness for each other, which I don't think was ever the intention from the original play. And I think there's an admiration between the two of them, but it doesn't go any further than that. Maybe then that's because of the time, but there seems to be more tension as well because boy does Andrew White go racist. The closest you get to the racism in the new one is Kenneth Branagh getting the shit slapped out of him by Harold Pinter in the in-universe adaptation of Andrew White's book on the television.
So Owen, are you intrigued by the remake yet?
No. Not
That's
at
the
all.
best bit of the film when Branagh goes actual full Belfast and goes, I don't know him.
So I'll do a little notes here as we move on. So you want to know what my notes are? Well, I said I love the maze concept. Don't love the snake. That sucked. Scared to death it might have came alive. It didn't, thankfully. The overhead shot was really well done. I like that. How it shows like how like massive this maze is, and it's like he's trying to escape, and he's like, "Oh yeah, just flip this around, and here, just come right inside."
Part of me with that maze is trying to work out whether it was actually real. Obviously, the bit with like the false door clearly looked like it was made on about a papier-mâché and didn't look right. But part of me wonders whether that is actually a real maze within the garden of that MP that they borrowed the house of for filming outside externally.
I would not be shocked one bit.
And the fact that we can't tell is more proof it should have gotten fucking nominated for production design.
Also a fair assessment. So again, we press forward, and I said that everything looks like a set. I think that's the point. The clown mask is interesting because I like how the mask itself, it's not something you see fairly often. It kind of reminded me of Cookie from Bozo the Clown. Like Cookie, like this Bozo sidekick Cookie, which a shout out to David Arquette, who now owns the rights to Bozo the Clown, by the way. If you were not aware of that, little fun fact for everyone. Little fun fact. Still butthurt I missed Dane Cook a couple years ago. One day I will rectify that. So yeah, the clown mask is creepy. It reminds me of Pagliacci, kind of like the Joker, like on the Batman TV series. Another like line there. Of course, he's got the clown wig, and like it's funny because you actually can see his face through the hole in the mask, and that's not something that happens fairly often. Not nowadays, of course, but masks back then, it's like his whole face you can see, and it's just like even more creepy.
Especially when the tone starts to shift.
Yeah.
While we're here, I have a whole bunch of clown notes.
I have a couple. So this movie is the sheer definition why the term clown shoes became a thing, because I put clown shoes equal evil, because they are in every way possible. And it gets to be so like the tone just shifts immediately. Like, oh, this is a fun game. It's like, okay, it's a game, and it's like, and it becomes like a jigsaw game. Like,
yeah, because one of the things that Ebert wrote in that review was that it's endearing. Like Milo becomes endearing when he's putting it on because he's so excited about it.
Oh yeah.
Part of me wishes when he was putting it on. Part of me was wishing when he was putting it on with the clown shoes, that's when he accidentally triggered the button in the floor where the skeleton jumps up.
Because the clear symbolism we can take away from it being a clown costume, despite Milo's eagerness, is Wyke thinking like, this is what you are to me.
Yeah, like when you get when he's just about to fire the shot, there you are, a Dago clown, because of course the Italian stereotype.
Yeah.
Zip,
and I like how Michael Caine just 100%. I like how Michael Caine just turned it around on him later in when he was going through the 4 clues that could potentially like save him because the cops are on their way. So needless to say, it's kind of like, hey, I'm going to speak in Italian to you because what you said to me earlier, turnabout is fair play, motherfreaker. That's basically how it was. I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
And especially also that bit as well when Olivier's like looking for a tiny bit of help, and he's like, "Non capisco." He's like, "Damn it! You're not getting any help. Work it out."
And just in general, how it's because even though what Wyke is doing is this very well thought out plan, the plan that Milo initially thinks it is so absurd. Of him having to break into the house himself, and it's like just kind of it just fits that he's in like a fool's costume. But then there's the idea of Owen. You mentioned the shoes,
yes,
and the idea of how those shoes were made to do nothing more than hinder. Because there's the moment where Wyke stands on them. There's when they slow down his getaway and he has to take them off before he can attempt to drive away, which he can't even do anyway.
He has no keys.
There's so much going on with this clown costume and what it means, and then obviously ultimately the final symbolism or the foreshadowing really where he puts the mask on the skeleton is pretty much right before Milo dies for real.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just the image alone of a clown's head on a skeleton's body is fucked up. Especially kind of foreshadowing too, or totally foreshadowing too.
So Josie says, which superhero and supervillain would you like to see paired in a sleuth-like situation?
Well, I guess that raises a very interesting question of who's the best or worst of the 2 evils in this movie. As in which position would a hero and a villain be in?
Or just superheroes?
Because that's the interesting about this is in the first third, you could see White kind of comes off like the antagonist, and then by the time we get to the last third, Milo feels like the antagonist. But they're both pieces of shit, and they're both the antagonists to each other.
in that respect, if you're going on sort of the mystery and the game sort of stuff, Kingpin versus Mysteria.
That's very interesting.
I'm gonna go Riddler and Penguin.
I might have to steal Riddler and Penguin from you.
Yeah. More so from Pattinson. Batman. I don't think it works with Danny DeVito. That doesn't seem like a clever character.
Now Frank Gorshin and Burgess Meredith would work.
Yeah, from the
I
original
love
TV series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually going to say, since they're both playing mind games, I feel like it should just be two Riddlers, like Frank Gorshin's Riddler and like Carrie's. But they both have hints of Dano in them.
I'm okay with that. Brian says, which Kingpin?
Just because I have a fondness for it, I'd go with the Michael Clarke Duncan one. But
Yeah,
obviously we did see more, really, of D'Onofrio's one. But I feel that that there's a lot we could have got from Michael Clarke Duncan if he was able to be part of the Netflix, which may or may not be Disney Plus now.
Doesn't really help me.
So yeah, it's just like, and then it's interesting that it just obviously you can tell from when the shooting happens. That's when the that's when the interval happens in the play. Probably because it takes the other actor, the 20 minutes or so to get all the makeup on to look believable, rather than look like Jude Law.
You can also tell that had to have been where Tarantino got inspiration, where the scene in The Hateful Eight when Bruce Dern gets shot is where the intermission is in that. And it feels like kind of the same lead-in. Because obviously because Hateful Eight was also modeled after like murder mysteries and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. So the second, the second third, even though arguably it's like the third quarter, because sort of the first half of the film is the setup and then the heist, which then leads into, actually it's more like the third fifth, because you obviously get the spell of Doppler's sort of interrogation and whatever, followed by Milo's game, and then I guess you do get that sort of 5 or 10 minutes at the end of like the denouement and all that. Part of me wonders whether that's what Milo was doing with everything that was going on. I know it's implied that it's obviously like a day or two after. But part of me feels like Milo's character was probably doing this because as soon as the whole game thing came up, I guess he felt like he needed a backup plan or something.
Right.
So much so in like just at the start with like ringing the doorbell and then making sure he goes to like the back door, which is never shown at it. That like backroom kitchen stuff for like the staff, the butlers and everything is literally only in for that bit, whereas everything else in the house is practically everything's pretty much shown twice, right? Oh, I guess we only get Andrew's bedroom rather than the wife's bedroom, Marguerite's. But like the hall and the cellar and the props room, we get to see like multiple times. Whereas this kitchen it's just there for a caviar joke to some extent. Before it moves away from there. I also find it fascinating that, like, then again, for the age of author that he would have been, I guess it would be appropriate for him to listen to sort of like Cole Porter and Gershwin stuff from the 30s.
Sure.
Maybe to some extent, like, reminiscing about when he was young and in love with her. Because the one thing that, like, it does seem like with Olivier's one, he definitely wants rid of her, but also not. Whereas, at least with the remake with Kane's, it sort of feels like he knows that she's going to come back to him. Which is obviously touched on a little bit when you get the sort of like Milo's about to walk out and he just says, "Can you afford to keep her?" And then he sort of like pops his head back in as if to go, he makes a good point. You don't really get that in the remake. It's just it's sort of touched on but not in the same manner. Because it feels like... Also, that's the other thing as well, when in the remake, they imply at first that Jude Law's an actor. And then they suddenly drop it to, no, he actually is a hairdresser. And it's like, why didn't they just stick with that?
Because at first it sounds like a bad joke when he says, I'm an actor, and he says, Maggie said you were a hairdresser, and he says, oh no, that she probably thought of somebody else. And it's like, ugh. But at the same time, I mean, I do like that it actually does make sense for him to be an actor because Doppler is a performance. But yeah, the fact that they still went down the hairdresser route anyway, I don't get even what that was. So.
But then of course you get the actor stuff anyway in the original, because of that little sort of subtle bit when he talks about the hairdressers and you're looking for the Latin lovers. And he says, oh, the birds. I mean, the women like the Latin... just that little transition going from sort of like Alfie to the sophisticated Milo. Just that little tiny touch.
Yeah, because there's a similar one. The movie's kind of bookended with it because then there's that moment at the very end when he says who, and then he changes it to whom, where it's like he's catching himself trying to get on like the same sophisticated level throughout it,
as if he sort of needs to get up to Wyke's level.
Yeah,
which Wyke loves.
Which I actually think
awfully, like so.
Which I think is actually a really great testament to Kane's performance, also because. When you look, because it's interesting, because Jude Law is a juggernaut of an actor, but the way it's portrayed in the remake, you can see when they interact, it's clear that one is high above the other. Like Law's Milo is so off-putting in this really weird way, where it's clear they're on totally different planets. But when Kane and Olivier come together, it feels like you get the sense that Olivier's got the power at first, but the shifts in power don't feel off more than they should, because there's Kane almost always feels like on his level almost at all times, even when he first gets there. It feels like the most different that he is White at one point says that he's smarmy. It's like that's pretty much about it. But for the most part, they do feel like they're on. Well, it's not so much that they are inherently equal, but that Milo's really good at adapting himself to be as close to an equal as he can get. Is what I take away from what Kane was doing.
Makes sense.
Which of course mirrors the sort of stuff on set when Michael was like, what do I call you? So, off stage, and he was like, oh, well, you call me sir. And like, oh, thank you, sir. And he says, now that we've got the pleasantries out the way, you can call me Larry.
I love how much that comes through in Olivier's acting also.
Ooh.
Because there's the whole thing of Olivier's considered like this ultimate thespian. Like when you think of like actors, like the first image you'll see in your head is Olivier holding the skull in Hamlet. But then when you think like he's nothing but seriousness, and he takes this, like it's like his life depends on it. But then when you see a performance like this, you see the kind of actor he actually was, where Olivier acted because it was so fun for him. And you can just tell this is the kind of role that he just completely went for. And the way that's balanced out with Kane, who was still relatively, was Alfie like one of, if not his first movie?
Zulu was when he first shot to fame, but of course that was the supporting role, really, in that with Stanley Baxter was the lead.
66. I can't remember when Zulu was. Was Zulu like 65 or 64?
64 or 65, I think. Let me just check. Zulu was 64. Wow, if you search Zulu, the first casting comes up is Michael Caine, not Stanley Baxter, even though he's the lead.
And there's also some stuff here that Olivier does where it's like, it's so subtle as far as the acting involved, like how when you don't know things have been revealed yet, and so there's tiny moments that can be taken in two different ways depending on what you know and what you don't, where after he's shot Milo the first time and he's like, no, there's that moment where he like lifts his arm and checks his pulse and then just like drops it absently. And it's like, at the time, if you're seeing it for the first time, you might think that's a really cold-blooded moment where it's like, yep, he's done, and then he like he's just taking out the trash. But then it's like when you know what's going on, you can see it. It's the exact same moment, but you can see it as like, yeah, he's all right. He'll get up in a minute. It's like to be able to take those two moments and see both of those moments where one is very flippant and one is very cold-blooded is... I love that kind of dual thing that actors can be capable of.
So sort of getting back to your notes, Owen, I noticed in the tweet, obviously you said last night that you sort of weren't invested in that first half. And then, like, it gradually got good for you. Well, I don't want to say excellent, but I want to say it gradually got good for you, I think, over the second half, from what I can imply from that tweet.
Yeah, correct.
Elaborate.
I started. I really liked it because like they flipped the script, and I feel like when Milo became the heel and Andrew became the sympathetic heel, I guess in this case, because he's not a baby face at all. He's not a tweener either. But I like this. He's like, let's play a new game, and it's like, oh, by the way, I'm a murderer. I killed Taya, and the cops are on their way. You got X amount of time to figure out where everything is. And I love his little clues and everything. And the fact that he's doing you did this, no, you did this, and everything like that. Just like White did during the beginning of the movie. It's like the tables have turned now. And I like that. And then when it got crazy at that point, I was like, there's like a race against time to try to figure out what's going to save everything. And I love Olivier's delivery and everything, because what he's doing, he's showing how great of an actor he is, because he is like going over, like dialoguing with himself exactly how to figure out every single clue systematically before it's too late. Because he knows he's running out of time. He's losing his mind. He's sweating profusely. He's got cops are going to be here soon. He's done for. He's pretty much dead to rights at this point. And I love every second of how he is forced to figure out everything one by one. And you can see like the wheels spinning in his mind exactly as he's losing it more and more as the seconds are ticking away. I just love every second of that. And it just really sold it for me moving forward.
I love to imagine how Kane must have felt during that scene, because Kane basically gets to he's doing stuff, but he basically gets to sit back and watch an Olivier one-man show while this scene happens.
And I like.
But then has the little. He also has those little jabs as well, like when Andrew says poor Taya, and
Right.
Milo just goes, "That's the first time you've shown any remorse for her death." It's like
It's true.
Yeah, because I'm curious if this was your experience, Owen, since you kind of feel like you knew it was Milo was the inspector.
I did.
There's that thing where if you're seeing it for the first time and you get the idea that the inspector, is probably Milo, when you watch the scenes where like the power shifts and Wyke becomes the frantic one and Milo's the one that's in control.
I like that.
We know by that point, if we figured out that it's Milo, we know the game and we know that this is Wyke being fucked with.
Yes.
So then we're in like a distant place as an audience watching this happen and taking like kind of relishing in the idea of how the table's being turned on Wyke. So what's really interesting about that final act, when Olivier has to run around and find these, this supposed evidence that's everywhere,
Sure.
it feels like the game comes through to us, because now it's at this point where when he's talking about Taya and, oh yeah, I strangled your girlfriend, now it's on us. Now we have if you're seeing it for the first time, we have no basis on, is this real or is it not?
Exactly.
So we seamlessly go from relishing in Wyke being the one that's being played with to us being in that position.
For me, the first time that actually did happen was in the Doppler bit. I thought it was probably Michael Caine as Milo, but as soon as Doppler notices the blood on the stairs, I'm like, wait, there wouldn't have been blood on the stairs because you didn't see it from you didn't see any blood come from his character. How did the blood end up there? I was like, that's the first time I was like, hold on, continuity, but it's obviously intended. Like,
or just they didn't want to make an R-rated movie yet.
yeah.
Also a possibility as well.
I'm trying to remember. I'm guessing the DVD must be. Yeah, it is a 15, I think. Yeah.
I'm missing more Chatsky here. Let's see. Josie says, I can see Matt Damon and Adam Driver's characters in The Last Duel in a Sleuth situation with Jodie Comer as Marguerite. Literally, I think that was her character's name in the film. Yeah, it was. Brian says, remember Branagh would play Olivier in My Week with Marilyn, a very underrated movie that AJ and I got to watch in Athens. I don't forget that. DiCaprio and Damien in The Departed could be in a Sleuth situation with Vera Farmiga.
That's good.
I like that, Josie. With Matt Damon and Adam Driver in The Last Duel, which one would be which character in Sleuth?
I would say Driver would be Milo because he's the one that's intruding. I mean, not that marriage in The Last Duel was great. Or anything.
I mean, spoilers, but surely Adam Driver would be the Milo, right?
Yes, everything said here has to be said very, very loosely.
Yeah. Also, Driver is the younger of the two anyway.
Yeah.
Driver's the one that's shown up as the Michael Caine star over the last decade or so, whereas obviously Damon's got 3 decades of career ruined by Crypto.com. Bing. Why'd you do it, Matt? Why?
Oh God. Let's see. I think we're done with that. I like some of the dialogue here too. It's like AJ told me up front it was going to be a dialogue heavy movie, and it really was. I love the line. I don't play games for the sport, particularly not games of humiliation. That's such a great line, and it's like, and it gets to the point that it's like, so they wrap up the game, and all of a sudden, like Milo is like washing up upstairs and everything, and Andrew's like, I can't let you leave now. I mean, I just can't. And he's like, oh, just stop playing the games and everything, that it's over. And then of course, like, nope, dude, done the party. And then, and it's great because, as to quote Norm Macdonald, the real cops show up at the very end. They ring the bell just like we did before, but this time he knows he's done for. And the great thing is Milo quite literally gets the last laugh as he crawls to his hands and knees, and he looks and he starts laughing as he hits the button, and the automata of that creepy captain starts laughing as well. And it's like they're all going to laugh at you at the entire time, and we just end as he just falls over dead, and it's just a perfect way to end the movie.
And of course, technically, Wyke is well, whether it's intended or not, but Wyke's laughing at himself because it's Olivier's laugh and cackling that rings it over it all, and just that whimpered cry from Olivier at the end, knowing you're done, son.
Oh yeah, clearly.
You talk about Caine getting the last laugh. We've been doing some Olivier praising here, and I honestly don't think we could do that enough. But I mean, can we just gush about how diverse this Michael Caine performance is?
So good.
We talked about it basically having 3 to 5 parts going on. In every single one of those parts, we're getting an entirely different Michael Caine performance.
That's the best part about it too.
It does feel like, yeah, you get the sort of like the gentrified Milo, the kid in the candy store Milo over the heist thing. His excitement just for dressing up as a clown and everything. Like, then obviously you get the Doppler bit. Then the sort of calculated him, and then it sort of goes back to sort of the Milo that we get at the start,
and then it gets into like super. He starts like it goes from like it really shows the difference between cunning and conniving when you look at this performance.
Great way to put it too.
Which certainly isn't the same. The denouement of like the way obviously when Taya's revealed to be perfectly fine and everything works so, the fact that he's actually done a murder in inverted commas and whatever, and that is the gain. The remake totally screws up because what the remake does, Owen, is basically the same heist, except he's more violent about it. And Caine's delivery in the original about the sort of afterwards, the revelation of like, she'll talk to you now. She and he's very calm and sort of sedate about it.
Right.
Jude Law, after getting the jewels from the safe, after smacking Caine's character in the face in the remake, as soon as he gets the jewels, he's like, so what book are you working on right now? And it's like, it's such an abrupt turn, it just doesn't work either. Because it doesn't feel like, it's like he's sort of just trying to scare the shit out of him for scaring out the shit out of him's sake, whereas when Kane does it to Olivier, it seems more calculated because that's the sort of game that Andrew would like. Yeah, that I still love that jigsaw puzzle. That's all white.
I like it because they're trying to set up this burglary, and there's kind of like Kane's really reserved in this, and I like this because he's like, oh, okay, let's knock some things over, it's fine, and like Olivier's like, no, it has to look like it's a burglary, let's rip my stuff to shreds and everything, and it's like,
and then we get to the trivia point, the bit where the chess set gets thrown by Olivier. He cut his hand open. That bit where he gets the handkerchief and puts it in his hand, it's because he actually cut his hand and was holding it there. And then when they went cut, he was like, stitches.
Hey, Owen.
Yes.
You know how long we talked about the clown costume?
Yes.
And how we talked about the imagery of the clown. It feels like it plays a big part in this for a number of ways. Like we talked about the eeriness of it and the absurdity of it, and him looking like the fool and all that. So like you can take it in so many different ways, but also just like in general, clown imagery just kind of pops. Like yes.
Yeah.
And it's like it's something that really stands out, and the fact that he's burglarizing a house, he would be wearing a mask.
Yes, of course.
And so using the clown for that is this great sort of thing in multiple ways.
Totally.
When he burglarizes the house in the remake, what kind of mask do you think he's wearing?
I don't know, for some reason, I'm thinking it's like some sort of political mask.
He's not fucking wearing one! What's the point?
What in the heck? That makes no sense.
He just breaks into the house, and Kane's Andrew White gets more of a kick of, oh, he's gonna fall off the fucking roof.
He could literally call the police and say, hey, I think Jude Law's robbing my house.
In those words, too. I think Jude Law is robbing my house. That's fair. Well, I guess you guys want to talk about the remake ski here because that makes sense because we're transitioning now because
I think we covered it.
in most respects, yeah. It's just it does. I appreciate what Branagh did certainly in terms of set design. I think the design of the house for a modern era would make sense because rather than being games, it'd be all these technical gadgets. Although, why you'd need a chain wooden rope style ladder coming from your ceiling randomly in the middle of a house don't work.
I have to consult Ebert's review one more time. What I imagine Branagh had in mind, because as we know, just in general, but also especially from this past award season, I really, really love Branagh. Like, one of the happiest times of this whole award season was seeing him win. No offense to Paul Thomas Anderson. And Kenneth Branagh is a filmmaker and actor that should be celebrated. With that said, you can tell he took the approach. By the way, the remake is 50 minutes shorter than this. It doesn't even break an hour and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like 80 something minutes if you don't include the credits.
Yeah, and there's a lot of fancy camera work in Branagh's. Good. Some okay, you can see like, okay, that's kind of a cool shot. That's kind of a cool way to do that. And others where it's like, it's clear it for the sake of we gotta liven the proceedings. We don't want it to look like a filmed play or anything like that. And I just find that really funny that he took that approach, because Ebert wrote this Sleuth review when it came out in 1972. And right here, it actually says, let me just mention that the play makes a remarkably easy transition to the screen because of director Joseph L. Mankiewicz's willingness to respect its timing and dialogue instead of trying to jazz it up cinematically.
Okay.
Branagh read that and said, "Fuck you."
Good Lord.
Yeah,
Fuck
let's
you,
have
timing,
a
fuck you, dialogue. We're gonna try to jazz this up.
let's have a lift which sometimes has doors and also doesn't. That's just randomly in the middle of the room. That's clearly there just because we didn't want any walls, so we can get a shot no matter what angle we want to point the camera.
Yeah, do you remember? Remember the scene? Remember John Malkovich's death scene in Con Air
Yeah.
when he's on that conveyor belt and then he falls off of it, and the way he has fallen to get his head crushed is not the way he would have fallen at all. Well, spoiler alert: Milo falls to his death in the remake on this lift. How he is laying, the way that he's laying in the final shot of the movie, I have never been able to figure out. It seems completely impossible because I'm just piling on things now against the remake, but that's one of them. I think it's because it's the last shot that it sticks out to me. Your last shot needs to be worthwhile, and all I'm looking at is how the fuck is that even happen physically?
Also in the remake, the implication is it's not the police that actually come to the scene first. It's the wife. Because part of me feels just the way it's framed, the wife will just be gone, oh, he's dead. You know, like, how many people she's been with, like, not just them two.
Yeah. Yeah, Owen, the Taya thing.
Mm-hmm.
You said the Taya thing's around the time it started to liven up for you?
Yeah.
Completely deleted from the remake. There's no mistress that I remember.
That's why I say the escalation in the remake is just Milo doing his own version of the jewel heist.
I like how she's in on the work. Her and her flatmate both are like, hey, let's play a trick on this guy. That's great. And oh, by the way, there's more than meets the eye that comes to this whole situation, because this whole mistress thing, no, this isn't real.
And honestly, most of the questions you're asking, like, you know how when you're watching the end of the 72 movie, you're like, oh my god, did Milo really commit a murder? Oh my god, did he really bury her body out there? Oh my god, is this real evidence? What's going on? What's real? What isn't? The only thing you're asking in the third act of the remake is, are they gay now or not?
Wow.
Pretty much. Like, so much of it is within the bedroom. Like,
I'm not saying the remake has gay undertones. They are overtones.
Yes, I was gonna say. Like, it is so ham-fisted. Stress on the word fisted.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I'm afraid to criticize that because I don't want it to sound homophobic. It's the way that's like they fetishize it is so weird. And it's uncomfortable in all the wrong ways.
Honestly, I just think that's Harold Pinter's writing.
Fair.
I think Anthony Schaefer was a bit more classy, whereas Pinter. The irony is, one of the films that will be coming round from my pick has Harold Pinter featuring in it as an actor. That's a better performance than the 7 seconds he does in Sleuth. And then I think the wife even gets a credit in the remake as well, even though she's not supposed to.
Yeah, they didn't even try the Alec Cawthorn thing. They didn't even try to hide anything.
Yeah, the cast listing in the credits is just Michael Caine, Jude Law. They don't mention Harold Pinter, even though he is credited at the end. And Branagh, I don't know who it is, is completely uncredited, but they do credit as well the wife, which they don't even credit her likeness in the fake credits in the original one.
Yeah. Yeah, if anything, they should have given J.M. Woodward a credit, because then everybody would have been waiting for her. To, like, be there physically.
Makes sense.
Is that it?
I think that might be it.
So now that we've gone through everything, any, like, final thoughts, Owen?
Before we go any further, I'll go with Chatsky real quick. Josie says in the Pattinson Defoe version, it would be a Batman mask instead of a clown mask. Never mind, he steals the Joker mask. Michael Caine or Jude Law, dress the killer or the aviator? Really like the aviator.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hit or miss with De Palma.
Right.
Like, I wish I was all in on De Palma. I'm only about half in on De Palma. And Dress to Kill wasn't one that, like, I really took to. So I'd say the Aviator, because I've always loved the Aviator. But I'm hoping one of these days I can be full De Palma, or at least mostly De Palma. Like, Passion, I'll never care about. Femme Fatale, I'll never care about. But like classic De Palma, I would like to be more. I only just saw Phantom of the Paradise for the first time last week, last week.
Yeah.
That was fun. Not what I was expecting, but fun.
That's how you do a Phantom of the Opera, Joel Schumacher.
Yeah, I think that actually might be the show tonight. Final thoughts on Sleuth. I just have no words, says Brian.
Are we sure he didn't watch the remake by mistake?
I'm gonna find that MS Thoughts game I was talking about last night on the Q&A show, and like I want to play that right now, and like remembrance of like being able to do that at my grandma's house back in the day. I will say that I haven't had an issue with. So I love the player. It was great. Moving Violations was my pick for a reason. As Sleuth progressed and I started to get more into it, I really wish I would have been able to get into it immediately, because I felt like I would have loved it even more. But I liked it. It was good. He said, no, I did not watch the remake.
Thank God.
Yeah, it was solid. I'm very curious to see where we go next, because Don't Look Up again.
I do have one more hate on the remake that I forgot.
That's fair.
What I wrote down was the remake is essentially. This sounds pretentious. Sorry. The remake is basically the picture book version to the 72's novel. If we're talking metaphors, because not only does it spell everything out a little more, did you know the mystery of what happened between scenes that we never see in the original? For some reason, we see those in the remake, and it kind of takes any air of mystery. It sucks any air of mystery out of it, and feels very. Oh, in case you were confused, here's exactly what happened. And I feel like that's kind of betraying the story, really.
Fair.
Further proof that Pinter did not watch the original or read the play notes, which I've just ordered on Amazon because they're dirt cheap.
I think I'm done with the remake for real now. I just had to get that out there.
Yeah, I think that's our show. So yeah, it was solid. Josie says, had a fun time as always, Popcast team. So yeah, does that mean we're going to put a pin in the actual poll right now, Ashley?
I've clicked the button. And there's the reveal. by 2-1 because we only have 3 people in.
Woo!
The late shift will be going on next.
And what I was telling you was it's probably good to do the late shift as soon as possible because it's on like 3 different streaming services right now. It's very available right now.
I've been wanting to talk about this movie on this channel for a long time. Honestly, I love this movie. I don't know how much I remember of like the dialogue. AJ knows I used to know this movie word for word, 100%. And when you read the book as a companion piece to the actual movie itself, this is one of the only times I'm actually going to go that route. I will say right now that it lines up pretty well. Like the performances are phenomenal. Like Treat Williams as Michael Ovitz and Bob Balaban as Warren Littlefield. I mean, I'm a big Balaban mark too, obviously because of the Chris Guest connection. But yeah, it's so good, and it plays really well, pun not intended, with The Player being our first movie we did on here, because it's really showing how real seedy not only Hollywood could be, but how seedy network television can be. How NBC really were put up against a wall when it came to Helen Kushnick pushing Jay Leno to take Carson's seat when it rightfully should have been David Letterman. And then, of course, what happened in the aftermath when Letterman went to CBS is like, you know what, I'll take my ball and make a new market for myself. And it went pretty much Nitro beating Raw until Hugh Grant brought Divine Brown on, as you're going to see in the movie, which is actually one of the last things you see as That's Entertainment's playing in the credit roll. I don't know how I can remember this, but it's a shoot. Watch the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And that's when the balance of power shifted again. So it's like very, very excited for this. I'm super happy to be able to talk the late shift on here and get to wax poetic about David Letterman against that other guy. And needless to say, I get to talk about John Michael Higgins and how much of a fan of his I've become because of this movie.
We were talking about with Taken, where it's like we've taken dialogue over the year. Pretty much everybody does this, and some people may do this without even realizing they do it, where you take dialogue from movies you love, and then you can talk to people in like a whole other vocabulary just through them. And I feel like a fair amount of your vocabulary may or may not come from this.
I can't say the lines on here, but yes, 100%. Most of the stuff that Kathy Bates says is stuff that I've said numerous times in dialogue. And this is David Letterman to me, honestly. Like, this always will be David Letterman, because Letterman's such a perfectionist, and Higgins comes through like with flying colors in this portrayal. Same with Dan Roebuck. No matter what he does in his career, like AJ said, he's always going to be Jay Leno.
Oh, yeah, that's really funny. The guy that, yeah, that's what I was looking up. I thought so. Kathy Bates won a SAG for it.
Oh, thank God she won something for it.
But, yeah, the thing I just noticed here that I didn't know or remember was who co-wrote the movie for The Late Shift.
I'm not looking at the signage right now, so please elaborate.
A guy we talked about yesterday, George Armitage, who did Grosse Pointe Blank and Miami Blues.
Of course it is. Why? I'm telling you, that video that AJ did is literally just... We might as well use it as a template for Popcast Movie Club for the next several months, because it seems like it's going to happen one way or another.
And talking about people who did movies based on the behind the scenes of entertainment, Betty Thomas is the director the year before Private Parts, which she also did.
That's another movie I wouldn't mind talking about at some point on here.
Yeah, it's another one of those ones where I did it with talk radio, which I regretted because there were better options. There were better options for talk radio, but yeah. I don't remember a damn thing I said about Private Parts, so it'd be brand new again.
I agree with that.
We praised Paul Giamatti, I remember that.
Of course, absolutely. So yeah, I think that's your show. So Double or Nothing weekend. And it's going to be a longer weekend for us because it's Memorial Day weekend. We got Double or Nothing on Sunday. And then Monday, Popcast Movie Club, The Late Shift, episode 4, which hopefully I can... I think it might be a good bet that by the time we go live for that, I might be able to break some news. We'll see what happens, hopefully. Got 3 things right now, and not like Bocephus Harry Doyle IV. I have 3 things in mind that are going to make things incredible, and one by one, they're all starting to fall into place. So we'll see if I can be able to make an official announcement or not. And on the final day of May 31st, podcast Q&A, hangout, chat. Josie, get ready for it because I know you're excited about it, and Brian's excited. Didn't see Spencer tonight either, so that was interesting. So yeah, I think that is our show tonight. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. We had some fun tonight. So check out The Late Shift. It's like AJ said, it's on many streaming services right now.
I think it's hanging out on YouTube, but it's also on HBO Max and I think Hulu too.
Very nice. And the cool thing is just like read the book too, if you get a chance to. And the subsequent sequel, which is talking about what happened with the Late Late Show and Conan O'Brien. So yeah, I enjoyed that one too. It was very well done. Not a movie won't be made about it, but I mean, I enjoy it. I enjoyed his writing as well, and it really gets you into how evil some of these network executives are in trying to get their point across. So, and I'm very excited to be able to talk about this because I love The Late Shift, and I'm very happy that it won this week. And then coming in June, Talented Mr. Ripley. And then we're going to find out.
Obviously, also a book, obviously, but that's known.
Right. So that's your show, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you, Josie. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone, for checking us out. If you're not chiming in live or an archive, thank you for watching anyway. We appreciate you tuning in these last 2 days here on the network. Tomorrow, AJ's Movie Reviews is coming your way. And then we're back to water parks for a couple more days. And I got a lot of sipping snacks. But first, I did one more day at Voices of Liberty in January. And it's the last time I've been on Disney property other than being at the movie theater. So needless to say, that's coming up soon. 7 sets of Voices of Liberty. So I'm very excited about that. I'll be making my return to the Red Circle very soon. Troy's coming into town, so I got some more video content to do. We're doing Busch Gardens, SeaWorld, just normal stuff. I get to finally ride Cosmic Rewind, which I'm very excited about. So Ashley, of course, can be found on social media at Ash is my name UK. More snack stash is coming in the future. And lots of good stuff from Ashley, as always. AJ, of course, just like Keith Richards, cannot be killed by conventional weapons, and he also is not found on any social media network, but you can leave a comment and he'll get back to you. Now we have kind of a forum, literally, where we can talk like this. Who knows, maybe sooner rather than later. We do appreciate any versus ideas. A lot of people throw them out to us. We take them under consideration unless we've already done them, and then it's like, there's a video for this. Check it out. So very excited to be able to continue this Popcast Movie Club, having a blast with it, and our subsequent Q&A shows as well that everyone seems to enjoy. Follow me on Twitter if you'd like at Sir Owen Disney. It is still a brand, even though I'm just Owen now. Simple, easy, to the point. Very simple, very easy, very nice, very evil. Needless to say, that's going to be your show for tonight. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in and checking us out here on the Popcast Network. As always, life's a happy song when there's someone by your side to sing along. And at the end of the day, stream Funeral Grey.
I was waiting for that.
That's all we got to say about that.